Companies that make complicated things oftentimes need to have a configure, price, quote capability within their implementation. But what exactly is configure, price, quote? That's what I want to talk about here today. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. And when we're helping clients through digital transformations and ERP implementations, one of the common things we come across is this concept of CPQ, or configure, price, quote. And configure, price, quote is a concept or a process that involves the sales and production of complicated manufacturing products. So in other words, organizations that make things that need to be configured and put together or assembled need to have a CPQ capability. But most ERP systems don't have this capability or don't have a robust enough capability, or organizations don't have the proper processes and procedures in place to ensure that they handle this process well. So what I want to do today is talk about CPQ and how you can embed this and address this important concept in your digital transformation or ERP implementation. Before we dive too far into today's content, I want to share a little bit of information about Third Stage Consulting and who we are. Third Stage Consulting Group is an independent, technology-agnostic provider of consulting services to help clients through their digital transformations. We help with digital strategy and software selection, as well as implementation planning. And during implementation, we provide services related to program management, organizational change, business process improvement, as well as enterprise architecture. These are just some of the services we provide. We have offices in North America as well as Europe and Asia Pacific. So if you'd like to learn more, I encourage you to check out our resource center, which includes a number of resources that will help you through your digital transformation, and you can access that for free using the QR code here or the links below. You can also reach out to me directly if you'd like to discuss your digital transformation and brainstorm ideas on how to improve where you're headed on your journey. Now let's jump back into today's content. So to start, let's talk about what CPQ is. And as I mentioned, CPQ stands for configure, price, quote. And to start, let's just really unpack those three words, configure. Starting with configure, we want to configure the product that we're making. So let's just say we make a big widget, a big machinery, let's just say, a piece of machinery that's going to be used to produce other things. And that machinery requires a lot of different components and sub-assemblies to go with it, and it's going to be highly configured to what that customer's needs are. Now, you're going to have sales reps out there that are asked to provide a price and a quote for that particular piece of machinery or whatever is being manufactured. However, the salespeople that are often tasked with providing the pricing and the quote for that product that's being sold, typically they're not engineers, typically they're not manufacturing experts, and typically they don't know how exactly the product can or can't be configured. Obviously, you can't just take a random hodgepodge of different components or sub-assemblies and put them together into a finished product. You need to know what the business rules are behind it and the parameters. So for that reason, we have to create a CPQ capability that allows the salespeople to be able to go into the system and define what the specifications are for the client, what it is they're looking for, and it'll typically offer a set of options based on business rules, a set of options or questions that need to be asked or decisions that need to be made by the customer so that it sort of guides the configure, price, quote process from a sales perspective. So in other words, you don't have to be an expert to provide that level of business support and understanding of how the products are going to be assembled. So the CPQ capability, as you can imagine, is pretty complex because you have to tie it back to pricing, you have to tie it back to manufacturing because you can't manufacture things that can't be manufactured, just logistically not possible, or perhaps it's just not a variation that you're prepared to offer. So you need to have systems and intelligence and business rules that guide your salespeople. And there's certain technologies out there that can do it. And next, I'll talk about what types of technologies can be used to address the CPQ concept. Now, if we look at how most ERP systems are built, most of them are built to take an order and fulfill an order and then ultimately invoice the client. Simple enough. That's what most organizations do. But the complexity comes from organizations that are complex manufacturers that produce complicated products. Things that require engineering support and business rules, and oftentimes there's CAD drawings and other types of logic behind those products. And ERP systems oftentimes aren't equipped to handle that. Oftentimes they assume that the end user or the person entering the order into the system knows how the product should be configured, priced, and quoted. And as I mentioned before, that's simply not realistic for a lot of salespeople that aren't engineers and aren't manufacturing experts. So there's a gap in a lot of ERP systems that doesn't allow for this or doesn't provide an easy way or an automated way for salespeople to address this. Oftentimes what happens instead is through trial and error or through a lot of back and forth communication and manual processes, organizations ultimately get to the point where they address that CPQ process, but they do it in a very painful and inefficient way, rather than providing a tool set that makes it easy for salespeople and sales reps and customer service reps to be able to answer those sorts of questions and provide the configuration that the customer ultimately needs. So when you're looking at potential ERP systems, you want to make sure that you're evaluating that configure, price, quote capability, and you really dig deep into that, because that is a big gap for a lot of ERP providers, especially ERP software providers that don't do a lot of work in the manufacturing space. You really want to focus on an ERP system that has manufacturing capabilities, but also has configure, price, quote, or CPQ capabilities on top of that. So if you are going through an evaluation process and you are a complex manufacturer, you probably want to make sure that CPQ is one of your top priorities for that evaluation. So the question now becomes, how do we address these CPQ needs? We know what it is. We know that some ERP systems have it, most don't. What do we do to address those needs? Well, first and foremost, I mentioned already that you can evaluate ERP systems in the context of CPQ needs. But if we back up even earlier than that, what we really need to do is define what are our business rules and document our business rules and our parameters for how our product can be configured and what all those different business rules are. And you may already have that in your CAD systems and your engineering systems, your product lifecycle management systems. And you want to make sure you have that clearly documented somewhere, because those business rules ultimately will determine what types of software can handle those needs. And ultimately, when you go to implement the new software, you'll want to refer back to those business needs. In addition to that, once you've looked at ERP systems, you may find that you found the perfect ERP system that can do just about everything you need it to do, but there's still something missing in that CPQ component. And if that is the case, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. It may be that that core ERP system is right for you, but you need to do something different to address that CPQ aspect. And that's where you might go look for a third-party CPQ bolt-on, or in some cases, a lot of software vendors have their core ERP system, and then they have a CPQ module that's sort of an add-on. So you can either look with your current software vendor. If they don't have that capability, there's also third-party providers for CPQ as well. So I hope this has provided you some guidance and understanding of what CPQ is and how it ties into ERP systems and implementations. If you'd like to learn more about best practices behind ERP software and digital transformations, I encourage you to read our annual digital transformation report. You can read that by scanning the QR code right here, or you can go to the links in the description field below. So I hope you found this information useful and hope you have a great day.